Hey, I'm Jay, and you're listening to Mindset Monday, a new series on the More Than podcast created to be the perfect dose of inspiration and motivation while giving you tangible tools to shift your mindset in a more positive direction. After all, your life is only as good as your mindset. I'm so glad you're here. As I was driving to the studio today, I had a very interesting experience that has just caused me to do some deep reflection. We just recorded a podcast episode with the amazing Priscilla that you heard on Thursday, and we were talking all about the season of life that you're in. And I feel like I saw that illustrated so well in my drive to the studio today and being stuck in traffic. So bear with me because this analogy just really clicked well in my brain and illustrated the fact that it's okay to fully embrace whatever season you find yourself in. So let me set the scene for you real quick. I'm driving to the studio. I'm on a frontage road that's right next to a major highway, and we're stuck behind a stoplight. And I'm watching this stoplight go from green to yellow to red, and I watch it cycle through 2 times. In the beginning, I'm like, okay, traffic, there's nothing I can do about it. Like, it's not the end of the world. Luckily, I gave myself enough time to get to the studio. So I'm listening to a podcast, taking some deep breaths. But after the second time going through that, I find myself getting agitated, that it's like, I got places to be, I got things to do. And then I look to the right of me, and there is a guy in his car that is having a full-blown karaoke session, having the best morning of his life, going ham to some song. And I couldn't help but put a smile on my face. And then something else caught my attention. There was a whole bunch of honking on my left side. And I see this car driving up on the shoulder to try and get around everybody to go through this light. And everyone's all irritated and agitated with them. But then I look a little bit further to my left, and I see that there is a cemetery, and there's a family outside of this cemetery/church wearing all black walking in. And the illustration of these people's day played out in front of me was so interesting and really got me thinking, because on one hand, you have a family whose entire life just stopped. They are in grief. They are working through the loss of a loved one, and the season of life that they're in is a full stop, a full red. And then I look at myself and the guy next to me, that it's like we're in this situation where I'm sure we both want to get somewhere because we got places to be, but that there's nothing you can do about it. So you just kind of embrace where you're at. And then you have somebody that's full green, full steam ahead, doesn't matter who they upset, that's driving on the shoulder to try and get to where they need to be because they're the most important person in the room. And it got me thinking about what season of life I'm in. And this illustration of a stoplight just stuck with me, because I feel like there's been so many seasons where I am green lighted. I am full steam ahead. I'm very laser focused on accomplishing what I want to accomplish in that season, especially even now growing my business for the last couple months. I've been so laser focused, nothing but just drive and hustle, that a lot of other areas in my life have had to take a back seat because I've been so determined to move forward. But I remember a year ago, I was in a very similar position to where I am right now. I was building out my confidence course. I was in just a really great place mentally, emotionally, physically, and that all halted overnight. If you listen to season 4 of the podcast, you heard me talk about a pregnancy loss that I went through, and it felt like I was going full steam ahead, and that just fully halted every aspect of my life and gave me whiplash, honestly, that I was so down. I was so discouraged. I felt so lost. And when I was in that place, it was really easy for me to look around at everyone around me and compare myself and compare my journey and compare the season that I was in to others. And I fell into that comparison trap that I think so many of us experience in many different seasons of our lives, but it can feel really overwhelming, and you can also feel like you're really far behind when you're in a red season. And I feel like that's when people are dealing with burnout, or if you're dealing with grief, or you're just dealing with almost like a midlife crisis where you just don't know what makes you happy. You don't know what you want to do. You're just overwhelmed in general, and you don't know how to step forward. Well, something I learned while I was in my red season that lasted a lot longer than I wanted it to. I was in it from like late November until the beginning of March. And for so much of that season that I was really grieving and really struggling, I just wanted to wish the pain away, and I wanted to be over it. I wanted it to be behind me. And it wasn't until February-ish that I actually just stopped and let myself experience the season that I was in and fully come to terms, fully heal, really start investing in myself mentally, emotionally, physically, to try and build myself back up. I had to create stricter boundaries around what I was consuming because I found myself comparing myself so much to others that I had to limit some of my consumption around social media or what I was viewing my peers doing so that I could just build myself back up again. When I finally started doing that is when things started changing. The season of life that I was in started changing. I really do think that the beginning of almost like my healing journey really started once I came to terms with the season of life that I was in and started focusing more of my time and attention and energy into fostering that season and how I could heal through it and start working more on my mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health, so that when I came out of that red season, I was a better version of myself. And I slowly started easing my way back in, kind of like when you're at a full stop and then you slowly start pressing on the gas again and you're in that kind of yellow season of life where there's a little bit more balance. Some of the areas in your life, you are diversifying your attention and your time into it. When I was coming out of that red season, it's almost like I started putting my foot on the gas just a little bit and easing myself back into my work life, easing myself back into relationships and seeing friendships, and starting to invest more in my health and my wellness, and just doing things that helped me to feel like a better and more well-rounded person. I'm one of those people, my personality type, that if I'm not working on something constantly, if I don't have my own thing that I'm pouring time and attention into, I go crazy. That's why this podcast has been so great for me. That's why building a business is so great for me, because I take so much pride in building something of my own and putting my passion and my time and attention into something that I realized when I was in that red season and I wasn't at all fostering that side of myself. I didn't have a creative outlet. I wasn't working towards building something. It only made that season more and more difficult for me. So when I started putting my foot on the gas again and started investing more into my business and coming up with creative and strategic ways that I could grow and flex that creative muscle in a way that wasn't so overwhelming, that was really helpful. I started investing more time and attention into my friendships and into my personal relationships. I started going out and doing fun things more. Like I just had a more well-rounded and balanced mentality than when I was totally in the red season of life and kind of shut off all the external things that were both harming me, but also bringing me joy. So identifying if you're in that type of a season, it's especially helpful to use that mid-year audit that we talked about in the last Mindset Monday episode, because when you're in that yellow season, you get to see what is working for me and what is not working for me in this season. I mentioned how it's okay that if in some areas of your life, you're living a 10 out of 10 life, and then in other areas you see that you're living a 5 and you want to start putting more time and attention and daily intention into improving those areas of your life. It helps you become self-aware. And I think most of us are in that kind of yellow stage where some things are working for us, other things aren't, but we're not taking the time to figure out and do a full audit. And although it sounds like it's overwhelming, it sounds like it would take too much time and attention to actually do this, if you take the time, you'll notice a transformation in so many different ways, because it's going to help you become self-aware. And that's something that every single one of you listening to the podcast, I know you want, and sometimes just don't know where to get started. So make sure you've done that audit. And then I want to talk to those of you who are in full green season of life too. Your foot is on the gas. You are working to build something. You are working towards a very targeted and very specific goal. I think hustle culture has gotten a really bad rap. And I am all about promoting balance and being a well-rounded individual. But I do think that when you have a goal and you are fixated on achieving that goal, it's okay to hustle your ass off. It's actually expected that you should hustle your ass off, because you're proving to yourself how important that end goal is to you, and you're doing everything you can to reach it. For me personally, I've been in this green season where my foot is fully on the gas, and the majority of my time and attention is being invested into growing the business. That means there's a lot of really early mornings that this is the first thing I'm working on, and a lot of really late nights. And sometimes I find myself being hesitant to post when I'm working late at night or talk about the amount of hours investing into the business, because I don't want it to be misconstrued that you should only ever hustle. And if you're not hustling, you won't be successful. But on the same token, I do think that if you want to be one of those rare ones, if you want to be one of those 1% that are building something that actually matters to you, you have to invest that time and energy, and you have to be laser focused. So if you're in that season, know that you're going to disappoint some people. A lot of people aren't going to understand it. And it's not because they don't support you, but it's because nobody will ever share the same level of passion for something that isn't placed on their heart. Like if a business or a goal is placed on your heart specifically, you are going to have so much passion and so much drive towards achieving it. And you can't expect for the other people around you to understand, because that purpose, that passion wasn't given to them, it was given to you. So don't try and justify, don't try and prove yourself, and be prepared to let people down. But having the self-awareness of realizing this is just a season, it doesn't become who you are, gives yourself a little bit more grace and gives you the verbiage to be able to vocalize that to the people around you, that just because you're not showing up for girls' night every Friday night, or you can't make a trip, or you can't go to a birthday party, or you can't do whatever the people around you are doing that you would like to be doing because you need to be focused on whatever your goal is, just know that that's okay in certain seasons of your life. And even if the people around you aren't okay with it, it doesn't matter as long as you're okay with it. But again, self-awareness. I'm not saying all you should ever do is have your foot on the gas and be full steam ahead, because that can also lead to burnout. And you have all seen cars that are driving real fast, and God forbid they're avoiding an accident or they do crash and they go full red. Like, you get whiplash. There's damage done. Avoid that, and just know that if you're in a red season, like, slowly go into a yellow, and then you can avoid going into that full stop red. I hope this illustration made sense to you guys the way that it made sense in my own brain. I'm always trying to find an analogy and find verbiage that helps illustrate these complex thoughts that go through my mind. And this picture that played out in front of me today coming to the studio was just one that really resonated with me, and also reminded me to always give people grace, because you never know what is going on in somebody's life. You never know what they're facing. And you can present the same situation to 5 different people and they will handle it extremely differently, and there's no right way, there's no wrong way, there's just your way. So control what you can control, build up that self-awareness, and foster whatever season you find yourself in. If this episode made an impact on you, please make sure you share it with a loved one. Make sure you're following the More Than podcast wherever you get your podcasts, rate and review. And I appreciate you guys for being here. I will see you next week.